Yeah, guy, David. Yeah, friggin' guy. It is Spit. We talk all things surfing. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you here on this Tuesday, August 8th. David, good morning.
Good morning, Scott. Wonderful to see you again. U.S. Open just wrapped up. The Chopu Trials just wrapped up, and that event is set to start in the next couple of days here. Lots going on in the professional surfing contest world.
Yeah, no, there absolutely is. And you know, frankly, I think the US Open was kind of fun to watch.
I know why.
What? Why? Tell me why. Because the waves are pretty good. It was contestable for Huntington Beach. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it a lot worse. And I don't know. Fill me in. I'm trying to figure out why I
I
was
know.
engaged.
I know why. First of all, you're crazy to say the waves are good.
Okay,
The waves
but I
are
mean,
like literally 1 to 2 feet.
that's pretty good for Huntington Beach.
It's like 1 to 2 foot shore break, so it's punchy, and lightweight people or longboarders can do turns on that. That's it.
That
Full stop.
oh, that's what it is. Okay,
Yeah. Um,
because I saw like Nolan Raposa just ripping. I saw these kids just like doing 360s at will, like carving 360s on 2 foot waves.
it's virtually 2 foot shore break, and yeah, they can do that. But
Right.
the reason why I think that it was engaging for you and me too, surprisingly, is simply because a bunch of local boys made it through. Like I was really just focused on Nolan Raposa,
Yeah.
because I've seen him surf since he was, you know, 8 years old or something like that. And then having Crosby, who I haven't seen surf that young, but he's from, 45 minutes down the road. So he'd also be considered a local boy. Seeing him, Kanoa was making it through to the semifinals, I think. So he's the local boy. So all of that local contingent fighting it out, not only for the event win, but for a spot on the 24 CT, had me engaged.
Yeah, I think that must be it. It felt like I don't know. I was just it almost feels like I'm missing out on contests or something. Like I haven't been watching enough contests or something, but I was stoked for my good friend Richie Cravey, who was in the longboard quarterfinals. He got DQ'd on a on a drop in, but he did well, did surfed well, and yeah, good fun. Just the U.S. Open wasn't overly through the roof surf wise, but yeah, it seemed like I think part of it too. It seemed like in the past the broadcast was really like it felt like you were kind of at the U.S. Open, like there'd be like highlights of the BMX coming up and this
Right.
and the tattoo contest is over here and and it just seemed more focused on surf.
Yeah, I think that's true. That being said, the commentary itself, I didn't have the volume up a lot, but when I
Yeah,
did, it's they just run out of things to discuss ultimately.
yeah,
I mean, I'm
it's
not
hard.
blaming I know, I'm not blaming the commentators themselves because I'm sure they do a good given the raw material, but they just run out of things to discuss. I mean, again, when people are surfing 2 foot basically shore break, there's not that, like, it's hard to make that sound exciting over and over. And in that style of waves, there's really only so much you can do. And
Yeah,
so, after you've seen 8 heats of it, I don't know how you commentate the next 18 heats.
it's a difficult scene.
But
Yeah, I don't. I
let's
don't
get
know.
into some of it a little bit. Eli,
Yeah.
congratulations to Eli Hanneman and another local that I did not mention, which is Sawyer Lindblad, who's coming out of San Clemente and really, I mean, making her presence known. Um, the longboard division. By the way, what did you think about watching longboarders in that style of surf? I feel like maybe they broadcasted more longboarding this year. It seemed almost like equal parts longboard versus shortboard.
Yeah, look, I've sort of lambasted the Huntington Beach as a spot for the longboard tour for a long time. I don't think it's a great longboard wave. I don't think it's a stretch to consider it a great longboard wave. It's just not a good longboard wave. It's just as you mentioned, fast, crunchy beach break. Now, the the old school longboarders, like there's a contingent of guys that'll be like, yeah, but the history because they've been having longboard contests there since like 1957 or whatever. They had the U.S. championships there in the early '60s, and And so, that's part of the problem really with surf contests in general is you get all these older guys talking about the legacy and that we can't give it up. But I don't think Huntington Beach is a good longboard wave, and I've let it be known. And I don't think that's a stretch. I don't think that I'm saying anything that a lot of people don't agree with.
Yeah, I agree with you. Khalees Kaleopa'a won over Honolulu Bloomfeld, and then Taylor Jensen lost in the final to Conniella Stewart. So Hawaiians took down the final. But yeah, I would turn it on and I'd watch them and I'm like, they'd get a little nose ride or something. But ultimately when they completed the ride, it was like, I wasn't ever impressed. Like that wasn't impressive longboarding. They would complete some turn. And I'm like, wow, that was kind of crazy that they were able to get the board up into the lip and then land it because that was a closeout, shore break section. But goodness gracious, this is not what longboarding should be. When you open up Instagram and you see Devin Howard, like we were talking about last week at Malibu on a log, like nose riding and, like that is what you want to see. Just barely making a whitewash climb, roller coastering down it is not what should be, that's not what it should be. It is horrible actually. But so those are the winners of the event. I couldn't also help but feel as I was watching the men's shortboarding that Felipe Toledo would have smoked everybody out there. As exciting as it was to watch the locals, I'm like, it's not them going against world-class talent. It's kind of everybody who's on the come battling it out against one another. Whereas in the past, you'd have at the U.S. Open, Mick Fanning surfing against Brett Simpson when Brett Simpson won his first title, and Kelly Slater constantly in the event and stuff like that. So not having Kanoa's a top-level C tier, but not having really the top 5 C tiers there, the Italos, the Gabriels, the Felipes, I think also left a question mark in my brain for how is Nolan Raposa going to stack up against those guys once he's on the CT,
Yeah. I don't know. More is to be revealed. Like is he a top 12 in the world? I really only want to see the top 12.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, Eli Hanneman comes into question then because since Eli was 14, he was earmarked as going to be the next big thing out of Maui, potentially out of Hawaii, and going to compete on the world level, probably for world titles. And this is the first event that I've seen him actually deliver on that potential. His free surf edits are always insane. But I really feel like based on the current structure of the tours, he could actually qualify for the CT off of this one win, essentially.
Yeah. And more will be revealed regarding the headspace of these young up-and-comers that are trying to take, move into the top spots on the CT. It's fairly obvious that the top 32 surfers in the world are great surfers. So to me, it kind of comes down to certainly there is a separation, as you've mentioned many times, David, between the John Johns and say number 32. But really, when you get into the top 12, what you're dealing with here is the mental aspect, the ability to overcome, it just becomes a mental game. I think it's a matter of, yeah.
I agree with you, but I think there's two things that come with that two benefits or virtues that come with the mental game. One is being steely in high pressure situations. Yeah. But number two is when you have that mentality, I think it unlocks a new level of surfing. And so the difference between John and number 32 isn't just a certain competitive steeliness and a certain competitive mental game. It's a different level of surfing. But that level of surfing is unlocked by knowing very confidently who you are, the space you occupy, your ability level, all that sort of thing, and not looking over at Gabriel Medina and being like, holy cow, he's insane and he's on my tail. Maybe I should start doing what he's doing. No, it's just focusing on who you are, your own unique physicality and how that translates, your own unique creative outlook on this whole thing and how you translate that onto a wave. And that's how you ascend to a different level.
Yeah, I mean, if you're number 32 in the world and you draw, say, John at Chopu, look, I have no doubt as number 32 in the world, you're a great backside tube rider, or at least you can get it done, But now it's you, John, and 45 minutes. What are you going to do? And it's easy to cave and just go, I better, you know what I mean? And so that's where I mean there's some mental fortitude where it's like you got to own your own space and
Yeah.
have some confidence and Zhao's a great example of that. I don't necessarily think Zhao's got the greatest style. I certainly, he's a little cumbersome, a little square, whatever, however you want to, I'm not saying the guy doesn't rip, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is his mental fortitude is what's kind of exciting about him. This is why I root for him in some cases. In many ways, he's sort of a better version of who's the Brazilian guy the blue collar guy that we used to love?
Caio.
No. Who won the world title?
Oh, Adriano.
Yeah, Adriano de Souza. Thank you. ADS. We used to love ADS because he put in the hard yards, and it showed up because he was mentally ready. And I think Zhao's like a better version of that.
Well, Joao was in that exact situation that you described against John at Pipeline. So John's home break when it was pumping in the first event that Joao ever surfed on tour, and he lost that heat, if I remember correctly, but I feel like he should have won that heat. It was right
great.
there. It was 9s versus 9s, and I felt like Joao's were gnarlier.
And he was hurt before the event.
Yeah, so I mean, he has exactly what you're talking about, and there's a couple of guys that we could probably Matt McGillivray. I feel like has, leveled up in that similar occasion.
Well, so to bring this
too.
back to Eli, or to bring this back to this potential new crop of guys, and I'm not focusing on Eli here at all, but you mentioned that he's had a star on his back for a long time as a young kid that's been under the spotlight. Which to me tells me, and again, I don't know the situation. I don't have all the facts in front of me, but it tells me that he's been given a lot and maybe too much too soon. And we've seen a lot of young surfers that have been given too much too soon sort of flame out. And I hope that's not the case. Again, I don't know Eli's upbringing. I'm sure he has great parents, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, when we look at guys that should have been world champions and didn't come through, what we see often is guys that were given way too much, way too soon. And then when you look at guys like Zhao, he wasn't given shit.
Yeah.
He was hungry. There's other guys like that too, that you're just like Caio. There's guys, and it seems it's what you notice here is Brazilians that seem to have a little bit more fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I fully agree with that sentiment. I think that it also relates directly to the venues on tour because Eli Hanneman, and I'll throw Baron Mamiya into this equation as well. Certainly they were given contracts when they were teenagers, or they earned contracts when they were teenagers, I should say. But their style of surfing really was catered to great surf. And they have an air game as well, but they can bust that air game out in bigger surf also. And so it's kind of surprising that Eli would win his breakthrough event at Huntington in 2-foot surf. But I feel like if the tour was geared towards world-class waves, Baron Mamiya and Eli Hanneman would be in the top 10, and the Caio Abellis of the world, would be struggling to find their spot. Although it's not fair to throw him under the bus because he thrives in big surf too. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, Gabriel Medina, Italo came from meager or humble circumstance and showed up in big world-class surf when it called. Felipe, not so much, but I do think that those guys...
Even beyond the Brazilian socioeconomic situation, which I think is pretty, generally speaking, most Brazilian surfers are like middle class or upper middle class. It's hard to be an Italo and get through and break through. But the thing that the Brazilians fought forever was just kind of North American bias,
for sure.
And that was the one thing where they had to be steely and determined and push through it, and they did. And frankly, I expect big things from Eli Hanneman. I can see him being I mean, it wouldn't. I could see Eli Hanneman in 3 years being in the final five.
Yeah, me
Like
too.
that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I hope it happens.
Which
I
is
just,
how
I just, more needs to be revealed. And again, to me, no matter what sport you're in, all the top guys are incredible at what they do, and the separation happens when you put in the hard work, and that provides a certain amount of confidence and a certain amount of mental acuity that helps you get to be the best that you can be.
Well, in regard to the local come up, the reason why this conversation I think is exciting for you and I is it's been absent for a very long time. Like when you look at who's breaking through into the CT every year, it's a long list of Australians and Brazilians, essentially. And so the Americans had Griffin in the last 5 years, Kanoa in the last 10 years, and Kolohe prior to that. But really, that was it. And I mean, even not only just coming onto tour, but even the people who are on tour, I feel like there was three. There was Kelly. John doesn't qualify because he qualifies as Hawaiian. And so there really wasn't a lot of local rooting interest. And to be honest, I didn't really have a lot of pride anyways. I'm happy just to kind of watch the best surfing. But now that I see these local guys coming up, I do feel a certain amount of investment and pride. And so currently qualified via the Challenger Series, we have Cole Houshman, we have Crosby Colapinto, who's now qualified. I think Cade Madsen is right there, like in the top 10. He just needs to solidify it. And then just outside of that, we have Jet Schilling and Nolan Raposa. And there's 2 events left. There's Ericeira in Portugal, and there's Saquarema in Brazil. Both of those take place in October.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. So all eyes are peeled on these local Californians. And when you were talking, and we were talking about how it's exciting, there's new guys coming up, I was thinking to myself, sort of relative to what I said about Brazil, East Coast surfers here in the North America, the Floridians, the New Jersey guys, even North Carolina guys, they too have had a sort of a bias. And look what they've done. They've been some of the best surfers on tour. Corey Shea, the Hobgood brothers, of course, the greatest of all time, Kelly Slater. You know what I mean? These guys weren't given much. In fact, they were told, get in the back of the bus. You're from Florida. The waves are shitty.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember CJ and Damien, their rookie years in Hawaii, they just were like, let's go, and we're just charging closeouts at, log cat or rock piles or, log cat, just, shitty waves, just like they were charging, and people noticed, and I don't think that they were given too much too soon. I think that they had to earn it. And I don't necessarily mean fiscally, although that could be the case in some cases here, but more about the kind of push to the back of the bus, so to speak, and having to overcome that. And I think East Coast servers have that. I think Brazilians have that. And, it's interesting, like, how come there aren't more Tahitians on tour? How come there aren't more Hawaiians on tour? The waves are good. The waves are killer. Who wants to go on tour? But if you're in the East Coast or you're in some crappy wave in Brazil or whatever, you're kind of like,
yeah, you're
let's get out of here.
100% right. There is a certain, grit that comes with growing up in those locations. Actually, in college, I was in a sociology class, and they gave this example that kind of verifies what you're talking about, which is when you look at the industrial age and like all of the developments that happened, and even art, poetry, writing, the great literature that's come out of the world, all of it happens in a certain latitude level on the globe, on the north and the south, but within, like, let's say 23 degrees latitude to 38 degrees latitude, because everything closer to the equator is too warm and people kind of develop, a certain comfort. They don't, and also it's hard to work outside in the middle of the day if you're close to the equator. So that limits the amount of work hours that you put in. Otherwise, you're kind of resting. And everything over a certain latitude, like 38, it's too cold. And so you're limited in the number of hours that you can put in terms of work.
That's so classic.
And so
equatorial malaise.
I mean, truly. So when you look at, again, great literature, all of the advancements in the aerospace industry, the automotive industry, the mechanics of, industrialization of factories and all that sort of stuff, it all happened in those same strips. And so I think that is related to what you're talking about, like in
Yeah.
Tahiti, it's like, man, I'm just going to go surf and I'm just going to go surf my local waves. There's no need to fly to Huntington Beach to surf 2-foot waves because God, it's perfect here. And the other example that we see is people who do that, they then earn all this money, work for 30 years, sacrifice family, all that sort of stuff, only to come back and retire in Tahiti. Like, why ever go on that journey in the first place? Just, you're already there. You've already made it,
Yeah. I mean, this kind of speaks to the idea of putting a tour in good waves. If we put a tour in good waves, we probably would see more Tahitians. Can you imagine if there was a tour at Cloudbreak, Chopu, maybe that other
G-Man.
good left, Hapiti on Maria, like there's a lot of lefts. I guess we need to mix
That's
in
fine
some
too.
rifles.
Um,
But you get my point. Like you'd probably see more Hawaiians and more Tahitians in the top.
yeah,
They'd be way more motivated to. I mean, they're going to want to surf 8-foot Chopu if that's on
yeah.
the, along with all these other great, powerful tropical waves.
Well, I forgot, as I was talking about Americans on tour, I did forget to mention Conner Coffin. He was on tour the last few years and
Yeah.
just retired. He officially announced his retirement at the U.S. Open after losing mid-event. Um, and yeah, so that's worth noting. Congratulations, Connor.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a classic and powerful regular foot who had an incredible carve game. Um, and I right now that doesn't translate super good. He was a world class surfer, but you think of guys like Mick Fanning, Taylor Knox, Conner Coffin, just incredibly stylish regular foots, but didn't really have an air game. And you kind of have to have an air game to to be on the tour this, to be even considered, right?
Yeah. I love
Now let me
Connor.
ask you this: Jao Chianca, what's his air game like?
Phenomenal.
I don't. I'm sure it is, by the way, but that's not what comes to mind. Like I don't think. I can't even think of one insane error that he's done. I'm sure he's got it all,
Yeah.
but it's not like you think about obviously Felipe or Gabe or Idolo or even Ethan Ewing, John. You're like, oh yeah, those guys all booze. Even Jordy, Jordy was an air game guy before there was air game guys.
No, I think yeah, Joao is a much more well-rounded surfer than Italo, Gabe, or Felipe. Like Felipe came on with airs, and
Then
then everybody
Gabe,
was
do you
like,
think he's more well-rounded than Gabe?
"Yeah." I
I
mean,
think
look at.
Gabe's the perfect package.
I don't think so. Like, look at.
Gabe's
Remember the.
style is better than Zhao, right? Do we agree there?
No, 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 no. I like
No,
Joao's. I like Joao's style
but
way
it's
better than
but it's
Gabe's.
negligible. It's not like one's that much better. It's not like Ethan Ewing versus
See,
Kyle Abella or something.
true. That's true. But But remember the conversation about Jamie Tierney's picking the clips for how surfers get paid about Gabriel not being able to do a carve, like a full
Yeah,
rail carve, because Jordy called him
right,
out on it.
right,
And Jamie spent hours, he told me, and he could
right.
not find a video. And so
Okay,
the clip that he used verified what Jordy was saying, which
right.
is Gabe, you've never seen Gabe do a full rail turn. And
I love
so
that. You mean like a fully engaged rail turn with at the very end you continue it into a down carve.
yes,
Like
correct.
we're calling out Gabe right now, or you are, David, and I'm backing it. By the way,
Jordy called him
Gabe,
out and identified it
let's
for
see
us.
your rail game, Gabe. Come on. Okay.
Yeah, because Gabriel's always looking down the line. So Gabe's like, and he's got a ton of power. It's not to say he doesn't have power. Like he smashes a section with a ton of power. He rides those thicker tail boards. He's got big legs, but he's aiming down the line kind of at all times. Whereas I feel like Joao, it's a more well-rounded, like it is focused on the rail game and connection of turns. And then when he gets a lip, he blows the fins out or does a big air. And so I think time will tell. Like Joao hasn't been around long enough. You could give Gabe like a lot of points for how long he's been doing it at his level, but I really feel like Joao is kind of the better path in terms of how I would want to surf, how I would want my kid to surf, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. I feel like Joao's more well-rounded.
All right. It's interesting. What about Elo? Because I'm trying to think of guys like Gabe who are sort of telegraphing, like kind of staying up high and just looking down the line all the time. You're
Yeah.
kind of suggesting with Gabe, that's why he doesn't engage that rail through a deep, full
Yes.
carve back into the juice. And is Elo that way as well? Is
Yes.
Elo lacking a powerful rail game,
Italo's
a carve?
even more so, I would say. Italo is the definition of short, fast, rapid, Energizer Bunny type surfing. And so, yeah, that's why I brought up those examples of you got Joao. I feel like is the most well-rounded. He's kind of a combination of what we've seen out of the best of Brazil up until now. And
Well, let me throw
or
this out.
Felipe's developed all that rail game over time, but when he first entered the scene, he was the air guy. That's how we know.
You know where they actually have, or Gabe for sure has insane rail game. And
J
this
Bay.
might, well, it's actually in their bottom turn. Like that's a rail game, and we don't think about that. We're always thinking, oh, off the top, did he engage that inside rail all the way through the roundhouse or whatever?
Yeah.
But Gabe's burying his rail through a massive bottom turn to then go up and do like a fin hack, a gaffing powerful, but it's a fin hack at the top.
Yeah, it
It's not
is.
it's not a full engaged rail thing like John's hacks. But you could say that they actually do have rail game. We're forgetting the bottom turn because Gabe's got one of the best backside hold the line, not 4 or 5 check turns, one big long drawn out bottom, rail turn.
That's accurate. And it's when I say they don't have rail game, I'm not saying full stop. I'm saying compared to the top 5 surfers in the world, like clearly they're world champs, multiple time world champs. They have rail game. But yeah,
Right.
compared to John, when you watch John's recent edit that Florence Marine X sent out to their, members,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just came out this week. It's from J Bay. They'll put it on the internet for free, I'm sure, in a week or two. But when you look at that footage of John, water angle, slow mo, I mean, he is in the same space that Italo and Gabe are fitting in what you talked about, the big bottom turn into the fin through the lip, kind of a backside turn. John is doing the same engaged bottom turn, a full railed Taylor Knox wrap in the pocket on the open face, back into the whitewash, straight into another down carve, up into, like it is a full symphony with rail in the water, transitioning into the next rail in the water the entire time. There's like no flat planing surface ever. It's just rail to rail to rail to rail. It's one continuous turn,
And the
and
other thing
holding
that
the power the whole time.
The other thing that might be missing from this too is that when you do that, you're engaging the wave's energy, all of it. You're maximizing the wave's energy. If you go off the bottom and go up to just the top 1/3 of the wave and bust your fins out the back, all the wave's energy is down below, like where John's continuing to move his rail through and down to the bottom into the, you know what I mean? Like you're sort of not tapping all the juice, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's why it's so hard to do because it's the opposite of looking for a score, to be perfectly honest. Like if you're looking for a score, you're looking down the line, where's the lip, where can I kind of flare things out, because that just looks the most glitzy and the most impressive. But it's the opposite of that. It's being in the moment and being connected to the ocean, forgetting about what the eyeballs are looking for, because it's lost on a lot of those eyeballs, and that's why it's so hard to do.
And I think many of us, when we're watching competitive surfing, we can see that. Like I've noticed, I know you have, I know the listeners have. I've seen guys surf and I go, it looks like he's surfing to a score. Like he's not, whereas John just looks like he's absolutely doing what he would do in a free surf, but he just happens to have a jersey on.
I mean, the entire US Open is surfing to a score. That's like
Yeah.
when you watch it, that's all that they're doing, because they wouldn't even be surfing there if it wasn't for the contest, because it's that crappy. But that connected rail surfing that we're talking about, that's where we can bring the conversation back to Conner Coffin, because he certainly implemented that style of surfing, which, like you said, doesn't really have a place on tour for a lot of the stops that they're going to, but he was still able to break through into that top 5 that one season. So I appreciate Connor's contributions. I love Connor as a surfer. I also think Connor's a great human being.
Yeah.
I think about it's so weird to be having a retirement conversation for Connor because he feels so young to me still. And I think about what's possible for the rest of his career. And I think it could be exactly where it started, which is he and Parker, his brother, on in the vlog space. They had a site called Young Wise Tales that was before we even knew what a vlog was. It was more
Yeah.
of them just like filming their surfing. There was no selfie kind of confessionals or anything like that. It was just they had a filmer, they'd film their surfing, they'd make little edits, and they were funny. They have great personalities and they have great contrasting styles of surfing. And I think Parker has hit his zenith in terms of his own surfing, and so I would love to see more of it. Connor's on a new path. They could do something really interesting in that space.
I love it. And look, I would love to see some more Conner Coffin. I mean, Connor at 8 foot J Bay, Connor at, there's many spots where you're like, yeah. And that was part of the problem is that, the tour didn't necessarily provide the best opportunities for him as far as
No.
the locations. Now, interestingly, though, I think it was the COVID year that he did really well, and the waves were complete crap.
Yeah.
Like, didn't he do good at like Narrabeen or
Yeah.
something,
He did.
or Merriweather or something like
He
that?
he had linked up with Glenn Micro Hall, which I think locked up a part of his game that, he did not have figured out prior.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is kind of an anomaly. And then the other conversation here, I think, as it relates to Americans and the come up versus the come down, Kolohe Andino, who got bumped off tour, surfed in this event. It's a CES event. We were like, oh yeah, Kolohe, he's off tour, but he'll just join the CS events and he'll get back on tour right away. Not so much. He lost in this event, I feel like in the first or the second round. I don't know if he made that first heat. And quietly quietly was like, not in the event anymore. However, he threw the full weight of his power behind that San Clemente crew. He's on the beach. He's cheering everybody on. They've got T-shirts for their 2% thing that their video series that they're doing, which by the way is also designed to lift up and elevate that entire crew of San Clemente surfers. And so I saw Kolohe very quickly transition from off tour leading the charge to being the full support system for everybody who's coming up.
Yeah, this seems like it's shaping up to actually be the greatest chapter of his professional career because there is a lot of momentum around San Clemente. I've been getting direct messages from people basically saying, hey, especially, well, not just the boys, but the women too, basically saying, hey, if there was ever a doubt that San Clemente is Surf City, USA, there's no doubt now as far as competitive surfing. What's going on there is next level. If you're a young surfer, you need to be at Lower Trestles every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or in that San Clemente sphere, maybe it's, God forbid, T Street or State Park or something. But the energy there for young professionals, for young competitive surfers, amateurs and professionals alike, is through the roof. And Kolohe seems to be corralling it all, and good for him.
Coalescing it all, like he was certainly a mentor for Griffin Colapinto, who has now gone on to surpass Kolohe's legacy on the CT by winning multiple events and all that sort of stuff. And so a lot of those young groups also look up to Griff as a mentor now and kind of coalesce around that. And so there's no question that there's a long tail of legacy for Kolohe and what he did and what he's continuing to do. I mean, he's making intentional investments in that community through the 2% series. And you can see that those kids are just psyched and they're all a part of it. Like that's another thing we could point to the Godowskis brothers too. Their whole like positive vibe warriors is infused through all of this. It's all positive. They're doing local events for community. They're rallying the unsung heroes, let's say, and really supporting. There's none of that like San Clemente mafia mentality that there was when I was a kid, where it was like, the Fletchers and Archie, and you had to Chris Ward, and you had to be like, keep your eyes down, don't look at them, don't like cheer them on, don't hoot them into a wave, just pretend like you're not watching. Like these guys are all about like waving the flag, you know.
Surfers are the worst, man. Surfers are the worst. Well, the other thing too is that it's authentic. The energy coming from Kolohe that he's providing for those San Clemente surfers is authentic and sincere. Like it seems like Kolohe's is at his most comfortable as sort of this mentor coach. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing continues to blow up in a very good way for him. And I don't know what that means other than maybe there's a brand that comes out of this. I know there already kind of is, but I mean, who knows, you know, and, and we'll see, but we're all eyes are keenly, on Kolohe and what he's doing for the San Clemente area and for, frankly, North American surfers. It feels like our next champion's coming from that camp, so to
Yeah.
speak. And it might be Griffin this
Very well
year.
could be. Yeah, very well
By the
could
way,
be. Yeah.
the Chopu event.
Well, I mean, despite us spending 40 minutes talking about the US Open, the heat of the year just went down in this last week as well, during the US Open, by the way.
Well, what's sad about this, we think, I mean, I hate to be a harbinger of bad news, but the heat of the event happened before the event happened.
I know. Not only the
That
heat
was
of the event, I
mind-blowing.
mean, arguably the heat of the year took place in the finals for the
Yeah.
or of the finals of the trials for the Chopu event.
Yeah, it was incredible, and most of the action happened in the first half of the heat,
Yeah.
which was a little bit of a bummer. It was sort of slow the last part, but I mean, when you got 18 points and you need a 10, you're waiting for a good wave. You're just not,
Yeah.
Although he did stay busy. How do you pronounce his first name? Is it Emilio?
Emio
Emio.
Cermak.
Emio. So he got second. Matoa Drole got first, and he got a 10 and a 9.3, I think. First a
Matahi.
9.3, then a 10. How do I say his name?
Matahi.
Matahi.
You
Sorry,
combined him and Manoa's name.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I apologize. But Drolet got a 9.63, then a 10. Emio, I think he got an 8.3 or 8.1 or something, and then got a 10. So we had back-to-back 10s.
Yeah.
First Drolet, then Emio, and we're sitting for 20 minutes waiting for Emio. Basically needs a 10,
Yeah.
and it didn't really come. He did try. He went for some deep no hand backside barrels and just kind of got eaten up by the foam ball. But what a great heat!
Let me back up to the beginning of this. First of all, this, again, like I said, took place during the US Open, and I feel like there was no fanfare surrounding it. Like, we saw it after the fact, and thankfully the WSL pulled the heat. They were videoing it, and they pulled it and put it on YouTube so that we could all access it, because otherwise it's buried in the archives of their website if they publish it at all. And so good on them for at least making it accessible on YouTube, because it's a shame when stuff like this happens and it's like, and it just doesn't have accessibility, essentially. But everybody's focused on the US Open 2-foot surf, and this is going down behind the scenes. And so it was super exciting, and now we can kind of point to it and celebrate it. But I think you're right. It will kind of overshadow probably the rest of the event based on the swell forecast. But here's what I learned from pushing play on the heat, or here's what I was reminded of within the first 5 minutes, is it looks like a lake. There's two guys sitting there, and then you see the swell line coming. And the way that it sucks up off the reef and it's kind of below sea level, when that wave approaches, you instantly know you would not go. You're like,
God, it's
you're like,
so
I
gnarly.
okay, those two guys sitting on surfboards in the water, that's relatable. Okay, crystal blue water, look at the backdrop, this is beautiful. I fit in here. As soon as that thing lurches, you go, holy crap, I am not qualified for that. And by the way, very few people would go, and even fewer could actually surf it the way that those guys are surfing. So juxtapose that I just described with Huntington Beach. And that should tell you the exact difference of what the WSL should be going for. If it is the World Surf League, you want to showcase what very few people on the planet not only could surf, but wouldn't even fool themselves into thinking that they would go on that wave. You know what I mean? Because that's the world class athlete. That is the equivalent of stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson. You're like, you couldn't pay me $1 million to get in the ring with Mike Tyson. You couldn't pay me to go on that wave in Teahupo'o. And so to see those waves come through and see Matahi not only get the first one, but soul arch into that thing,
with
it's
his
like,
tongue out. He
that
soul
was
arched and his tongue was out. He was laughing inside this thing at the most, critical moment.
you're like, holy cow, is he going? Oh my God, he made the drop. Oh my God, it's going to be a 10. But like you said, that casual approach of in those most intense moments where he's like, bro, I do this all the time. I live here. Like, here, now I'm showing off. That's where you go, holy cow, this is a whole different level. You know what I mean? No offense to
Yeah.
Eli Hanneman and Huntington, but I've seen 12-year-olds doing, a big snap and an air reverse on a wave at Huntington all the time, who don't even have sponsors. And so what Matahi's doing out there, you're like, there's, I don't know, 5 to 8 people on the planet who could do that. It's insane.
There's probably more. You mean guys that can take off late, do a soul arch, and laugh inside the tube?
It was a sick wave, dude.
It was. No,
So
I'm
then
sure there's more than 8, but okay, there's a small amount for sure.
what's crazy is that was a legit 10, like,
Oh yeah,
but then Emio's wave was a 12.
it was
Like,
next level.
like
No
honestly,
hands.
I could not
He
believe the way that
disappeared.
I know. I couldn't believe the way that Emio approached that thing. Like, he was deeper, the takeoff. I was like, oh my God, like that pump, that initial kind of knife into a pump up high, knowing that foam ball's coming, no hands. I'm like, there's no way he's making this thing. So if Matahi's was a 10, Emio's was a 12. It's
Yeah,
exactly what you want out of a heat.
it was. Hold on for just a sec.
All right.
Okay, I'm back.
All right. So the other detail that stands in stark contrast to me about watching that first 10 minutes of that heat was it's insane when they do make it. And maybe there's more than 12 people who would make it, but not a lot more. But when they don't make it, it's a matter of life and death,
Yeah.
which is not the case in Huntington ever, And so I forget who, it might have been Emio, went down on a wave and the jet skis rush in and you're like, I mean, he legitimately could be, if not dead, he could be maimed. Like,
Yeah.
it's that serious out there. And so you're waiting with bated breath every step of that heat, And like you said, the last 20 or 15 minutes there weren't waves, but you're still waiting with bated breath, watching the entire thing. You're not going to walk away because you know what the potential is out there.
Yeah, and as you said that, I was thinking, the litmus test should almost be, is this a 3-man heat? In other words, it's Drolet versus Emio versus Chopu. And
Right?
at every event, the contest director needs to go, do we have a 3-man heat here?
Yep.
Are there 3 entities that are at play? And if the answer is no, then we don't have a contest, or one that brings the man versus nature element that you often cite as crucial, and we all know is crucial. Wave of consequence. Is it a 3-man heat?
Yeah. And the real structure of that is actually Matahi and Emio versus Chopu first.
Yeah,
The competitor is secondary.
yeah, exactly. So, look, the forecast coming up here isn't super great. But let me tell you something that I find interesting. Do you know where Kelly Slater is right now?
Pebble Beach.
Excuse me. No, the exact opposite. Kelly Slater right now is at Skeleton Bay. He is surfing as we speak, perhaps, although it's probably the late afternoon there. The gnarliest, the grindiest, the longest, the coldest sand bottom left tube in the world. He's going to fly into Tahiti, and it's going to be 3 to 5 feet, blue water, perfect chopu. And it's going to be like butter in his hands. I sense that Kelly really feels like he needs to make a statement, an Olympic statement, a statement to the organizers, a statement to the naysayers that he belongs in the Olympics in 2024 in Tahiti. And the fact that he's coming from Skeleton Bay, just the exact opposite of Chopu, he's going to just slide right in and go, this is easy compared to what I was just dealing with.
The opposite, but the same, the same skill sets.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a bathtub for him. And so I've put him on my fantasy team. I think all the listeners should too.
Do you want to guess?
Again, he's going to make a statement.
You want to know how many heats Kelly's won this year?
2?
4.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the scores, and there's guys that, Kelly's made the cut line through his, I don't know, the Kelly rule or whatever, but
Kelly
if you're Samuel Pupo, you're like, dude,
I know.
I surfed way better than this guy the first half of the year.
I know. Yeah, so how do you know he's in Skeleton Bay?
Because Strider's been putting it on his, yesterday Strider put it on his Instagram, his story.
Okay, I missed it.
And it was insane. And he's there. He was there yesterday, and he's there today, and it was pumping. And they got, Kelly's with them and Kalani, and he's suiting up, and he's just frothing. And you can imagine what it's like going from Skeleton Bay to Chopu. It's, it's going to be a cakewalk for Kelly. Now, the waves are only going to be 3 to 5 feet. There might be a day where it's maybe 6 feet. It's not going to be anywhere near what we hoped it would be. And we spoke about that last time. I'm not going to get into that, but
well, I hope I get to watch this footage of Kelly at Skeleton Bay, because this is what I love Kelly for. That, I've criticized Kelly's competitive results for the last 8 or 10 years. But I don't really want to watch him surf in the events that are on the CT at this point and the venues that they're on. It's not where he shines. And so having him kind of doing a global surf trip throughout the year is what we want from Kelly. And I've never seen him. He's never been to Skeleton Bay before. I've never seen that footage. I would love to see that. That's exactly what I want out of my Kelly Slater. So I'm thrilled to hear that he's there. And I agree with you. It's a smart training trip for Chopu, paradoxically.
I mean, he's 50. What is he? 53 or 54 or 52 or something?
I'm going to say 52.
He's probably the oldest guy to ever surf Skeleton Bay. I mean, that is not a simple wave. That's probably one of the most difficult waves in the world to surf, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I mean, the drop is pretty gnarly.
But he's perfectly suited for it. I mean,
oh, absolutely. You're going to see some insane footage because the place was packed with photographers. Like,
yes,
Strider took his camera and kind of panned down the beach, and believe me, word was out that Kelly was there. Well, so there's going to be plenty of coverage.
My other thought of that is, who lives a better life than Strider?
He's doing well. Good for him, man. More power to him. I'm happy for him.
He's made great decisions in life, and one of them was marrying up. Let's put it that way.
Okay, fair enough.
His wife's a major real estate agent in Malibu, and I don't know if you've seen the compound they live in, but it's the
next level.
Yeah, it is the that's how the other half lives.
Good for
lifestyles of the rich and famous, traveling the world, surfing with Kelly all the time.
So here's what's interesting too about this is that, so right now, as many of you know, Felipe, Ethan, and Griffin have the top 3 spots in the final 5 locked up. There are 2 spots that are still available. Now, Jiao Chianca and Yago Dora have those 2 spots right now, but they are the hunted, and the hunters are Gabe Medina, John Florence, and Jack Robinson. And frankly, wouldn't it be neat if Guess Who, Kelly Slater, becomes a spoiler and finds himself against Yao or Yago in an early round heat, and he sort of comes out and like I said, he becomes the spoiler. That would be pretty fun.
Well, yeah, you could easily look at Kelly's track record at Chopu and make that argument. I don't think Iago or Joao are slouches in big barreling lefts. I think that they are
Well, it's not going to
actually,
be big though. It's just going to be
oh,
3 to 5 feet.
which,
So
which is even better for them, to be perfectly honest.
I
I think,
agree. I agree. I agree.
yeah,
Totally
but
agree.
so obviously Kelly's won the event multiple times, probably. John, we know what he's like in those conditions. But to be perfectly honest, Gabe surpasses all of them. I don't think Gabe's ever not made the quarterfinals there, and he's made a bunch of semis, and he's won the event multiple times. I don't know, three
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
times. And so Gabe is who you really would put your money on in this situation.
So do you see Yao or Yago getting their way into the final five, or will they be
Who's
overtaken by the
who's Yao?
Ja? I don't know. Jiao. How do I say his name?
Joao.
Yao Ming. He's a center.
I
He's from
know.
the Chinese national basketball
I don't
team.
think he'll fit in the tubes there. That's the problem. He's too big.
Joao or Yago, do you think they hang on?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think they hang on, dude. I don't think that they hang on. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of 50-50. Like, let's take them individually. Yago Dora could easily make the semifinals out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and the
Yep.
ultimately it's going to come down to a wave starved heat. In that run of the four heats or whatever that you've got to surf going up to the finals day, are they going to get a heat where there's only one set in the heat? And if they are, or if they do they get those do they get two scores on the board? Like, that's kind of what this comes down to. If it was
Yeah.
just a full like barrel shootout and it was 8 feet, I would put my money on Gabe, John, Jack Robinson, and Kelly Slater to have those guys' numbers for sure. But in that 3 foot condition, 3 to 5 feet, it's kind of up. It's 50-50, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It sort of equalizes the situation a lot, and in some regards, helps for sure. Joao and Yago.
Yeah, it does.
Um, but yeah, Gabe Medina seems like a lock because Gabe's kind of guy on a 3 to 5 foot day. He'll come out of the tube and do an aerial. You know what I mean?
And the other thing is he's unflappable. Like,
Oh
he's
yeah,
gonna make his waves. And I feel
yeah,
like Joao, I could see coming up against somebody and like pushing the limits a little bit, like trying to take off deeper, trying to do something wild and not necessarily making it. You know, if he goes down once, that's going to leave a hole for somebody, for a world champ to actually seize.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't
Well,
know.
so it'll be fun, I
Yeah, it'll be
think.
fun. That's the other thing is like when the waves are the stars, nobody loses. So in that trials final, Emio officially lost that heat. I don't know if we mentioned Matahi
Yeah,
actually won the heat and got a berth into the event, so he'll be surfing in the event.
he
But
faces Felipe, by the way.
oh, okay, perfect. But Emio, you could easily everybody's like shoo him into the event, figure out a way for him to get into the event because he earned it. There were no
Yeah.
losers in that heat, and
Well,
certainly not
and
the viewers.
that's the other thing that's a bummer about their format, the WSL's format, is that you've got Kalu, Vost, and
Yeah, that's
Drolet,
right.
and their talent is being wasted because the WSL's format doesn't allow running waves when the waves are perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
It demands running waves on a time frame, which is silly.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kelly Slater, uh, at the Boardroom Show, the Boardroom International Surfboard Show presented by US Blanks, Steve Sherman's going to be giving his talk story photo exhibition called War and Peace about the years that with Kelly Slater and Andy Irons, their rivalry, their friendship. And of course, Steve Sherman, T. Sherms, he was on the front lines of all of it. And he's going to share behind the scenes anecdotes with his incredible photography of that time period. It'll be an unrivaled opportunity for us to ask T. Sherms questions about it all and to get anecdotes. So, talk story photo exhibition War and Peace with Steve Sherman is one of the many things you can see at the Boardroom International Surfboard Show presented by US Blanks. In addition, David, the Best in Show Bonzer surfboard build off is through the roof. I've never received this many entries, and it's open to any surfboard builder in the world. If you're listening to this right now, build us a Bonzer and show up with it, and you're in. And we're getting flooded. Malcolm and Duncan Campbell, the Bonzer brothers, are the judges, and they're going to have their hands full. There's going to be some incredible stuff there. And I'm super amped about the Boardroom International Surfboard Show presented by US Blanks coming up October 7th and 8th. Tickets will be available shortly.
So the Campbell brothers are going to show up. They're going to survey all of those submissions, and they are going to pick their favorite bonzer amongst them. And what does the winner win?
$1,000 and a chain. You're going to get a chain that has a massive, I guess, what would you call it? A medal, a badge,
I
a
have
massive
no idea.
medal,
A clock? Like
a clock, kind of like a clock, except without a face and hands and stuff on it. It's going to instead say champion, best in show, board build off, blah, 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 whatever it says. It's going to be a massive chain, like something that you would see
when did you start implementing this? I've never heard of
this
this.
year. This year, this is all new.
Is it
I'm
a-
excited.
Is it a gold chain or like a chain from Home Depot?
Um, it might be gold painted, but it's not going to
Spray
be
painted
gold.
gold?
Yeah, spray
Why?
paint. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, like when you are in the Olympics, you get a ribbon with a medal. Is
Yeah.
that the concept?
No, the concept is a massive
Why?
badge slash.
Why?
Why not? Why wouldn't you do this? Because it's fun, David. We
Okay,
want to
okay,
have
okay.
fun.
I didn't know if this was like related to a Bonzer somehow, or the Campbell
No,
brothers like
No,
have.
this is,
I don't know.
no, this is just the newest Best in Show award.
Okay,
So you can walk around the show with your chain on. Yeah.
Flava Flav.
I knew you were going to go there. Anyway, it's going to be
well-
good stuff.
While we're talking about surfboards, we do have a listener submitted question that I would like for you to chime in on.
Yeah.
Because it's specifically about your area of expertise. Johnny on Instagram said, "Hey, I have a question for Scott and yourself. I'd like feedback on alternative construction logs? Question mark. I'll give you some context. I'm looking to buy a new log, traditional shape longboard, of course. I've been thinking about a Thomas or my standard local New Zealand shaper, but I've also seen the CJ Nelson designs, and I've heard some more good reviews than bad. Not wanting to buy an Asian import board, though, I'd rather support my local shaper. But then, of course, I saw the CI, the Channel Islands log, that just came out. We have a local shaper who shapes the Channel Islands boards here, but his method of construction for his boards is EPS blank with a wood and he says a wool and epoxy resin. So I'm not sure what he meant by wool. But anyways, EPS blank with epoxy resin. So I wanted to get both your opinions on alternative construction, traditionally shaped longboards. I appreciate your perspective on this as it's more relatable to my surfing experience. Thanks.
Well, it's a great question. And if you're going to get a traditional longboard, I think you should get traditional construction.
Yes.
That's the way I feel about it.
Yes.
You should get poly with just, you want a board with weight. If it's a traditional longboard, you want a little bit of weight. You know, I think a 15-pound board isn't out of the question for a traditional longboard. You know, if you're going a little bit more hybrid, I've heard great things about the Thunderbolt technology or the Thunderbolt build that they do over there at Firewire. And I've been wanting to ride one, specifically one of the Harley Ingleby boards. I just haven't got my hands on one. And I'm also I've got foiling on the brain right now. I've been foiling like a freak. But if you're going traditional, as this gentleman suggests he is, my hat's off to him. I think he should go to his local shaper and get a polyurethane blank with just standard resin, maybe a heavier glass job. And it's kind of an easy answer in my opinion. You really don't want to go EPS with any kind of like flax resin or some sort of or flat or some sort of weird new weave, some kind of cloth that we don't know about.
But he's right. Those CJ Nelson boards, he said he's heard more positive than negative feedback on, but I don't know that those qualify as a traditional log. And even if CJ is marketing them and they have the word log in them, when I watch his style of surfing, it isn't traditional longboarding. Like, he is ripping on those things and he's doing real fast cutbacks and stuff. So I think that the virtues inherent in that construction are related to its lightweight and its responsiveness. But a traditional log, again, I mentioned it earlier, pull up the Devin Howard footage with him promoting the new CI log, and that style of surfing, of keeping the board straight and just kind of maybe kicking it back into the pocket for a second with a little bit of a cutback. It's not redirecting the weight of the board. It's just kind of stalling the weight of the board for a minute to let the wave catch up and then resuming all the down the line speed. That's what he's doing. You know, you're not redirecting those boards. And so if the writer, our listener, is looking for a traditional log, then you're right. Weight is the virtue, and you get weight through a denser polyblank and Volan thick glass, that sort of thing. And it's irreplaceable. There's no other way to do that style of surfing, or it's way, way harder to do that style of surfing if you don't have the weight.
Yeah, I agree. So the listener needs to kind of look inwardly and determine what kind of style or surfing he wants to do on this board. Because I agree with you, the CJ stuff, that's more like the kind of longboarding that I would want to do. A little bit more responsive, a little faster, a little quicker. And so I'm sort of drawn towards that. I personally would never get a traditional log, so to speak, because I just simply can't turn them. They don't do, my experience is I'm not good enough to ride them. You know, I need a board that does a bottom turn. And there's guys that ride them that are great surfers that seem to know how to do bottom turns with them, but I can't seem to get any projection out of them. And so I'm geared more towards something that's a tweener almost, which probably explains why I can never get a really good one, because I usually go one way or the other, and I can never get that board that I can surf traditionally, but gives me feedback that's a little more sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the answer for the listener. Look within. Which style of surfing are you looking to do? And
Yeah.
the boards that he's mentioned are all great options. You know, the Thomas board, certainly if you can get your hands on one of those in New Zealand, that'll serve a great purpose. And the CJ boards, if you're going to surf that way, fantastic, I'm sure.
And Devin tells me that I'll be able to do a super smooth and projected bottom turn on the CI log, that's one of the things that they were working on. And I've heard that too from Thomas and from other guys. Sort of the secret sauce right now is trying to get a really great nose rider, but that also has a little bit more play or projection, if you will, than say a complete, tail dragger.
Yeah. Well, we should mention, as we've mentioned, the CI log that we got to point to Wayne Rich in that board's development and design.
Oh, yes.
Devin's name is related or is associated with it because he did help develop it, but he was relying on Wayne Rich's guidance for that design. So Wayne Rich, major shout out.
Wayno's the best. And as you know, I'm an owner of, I probably have 5 Wayne Rich boards in my back here. Big fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, look.
Good show.
Great show. Yeah. Until next time, David, adios and aloha.